Okay, so I've got no live demos, which is reassuring. So yeah, I'm from EDINA, and I'm going to talk about open services and data and how we use open source technology. Sorry? Shout. Okay. It's going to be a bit similar to the last presentation because a lot of it will be to do with data that you can get. So what is EDINA? Well, some of you will know we're a national data centre based at the University of Edinburgh. And we're supported by GISC, which is the Joint Information Services Council, and essentially that's it. So we provide services generally to the HE, FE, higher education, further education community in the UK. But things have changed quite a lot in the last 12 months in Geo, as I'm sure you're aware, and we've been trying to evolve with it. So we've got a remit of trying to ensure continuous access to resources. Those resources can be pretty much anything that the education sector might want to use. Some images at the bottom left-hand side is more sort of multimedia bibliographic references, resources. I'm moving to the right, goes into the Geo. I'm going to concentrate on the Geo today. But we're involved with lots of stuff, so like e-journals, what happens if your university or organisation takes an e-journal, then decides for some reason not to take it. The publisher may take away the rights for you to access the material that you paid for during your subscription period. Not the best model, so we're looking at ways that you can have continuous access to what you paid for, even if you've stopped paying for it. It's not like you've bought the journals and they're now in a library. They're in an electronic form somewhere on the server. So we do stuff like that. Moving on to the Geo, we've taken all the OS open data and we've made a WMS as well called Digimap OpenStream. Digimap's kind of our flagship little thing, which gives students access to OS data, and it's free at point of use for the students. What we've done is we've taken the open data and we've made a WMS, which you can then put into your web app or take directly into Google Earth or pump into your favourite desktop GIS of choice, be that ArcGIS or Quantum GIS or any of the other ones. Now this service, it does say you can only sign up to it if you've got a .ac.uk email account. We've now got 1,000 registered users, and they're not all from the academic sector. We're essentially open to just requests. So if you want access to it, you can email us, and then we'll look at it on a case-by-case basis, and then open it up. It was restricted in the first instance just to make sure that we could actually manage the load without everything falling over, because obviously our prime concern was not to impact on other services that we had for the academic sector. But it's really quite nice. There's also some help pages which get you started. You can access those without login, so it's good to go to that. Open boundaries, it's pretty much the same again, but it's an interface now which allows you to drill down into the weird and confusing world of boundary data sets in the UK. It's quite a confusing thing to get into. I get confused, and just when I think I've got it nailed, you move to Scotland or from Scotland to England, and you realise that they have different names and mean different things, and what you knew held true in one area now doesn't. Unitary authorities, the districts, and counties, downloading a map and you think it's going to be continuous and there's a massive hole where Warrington is. Yep, that's interesting. So what you can do is you can drill down through an interface and you can get the data. Then it uses the open data, the open stream, so as you get a preview of the shapefile that you're going to download. So that's quite nice as well. We have something else which uses, it's a gazetteer search called Unlock. So it disambiguates place. Place names aren't always unique. You might put in Newtown and return lots of new towns, which is the new town that you want. So you could build a search gazetteer for a website, and then this tool takes care of all the stuff in the background. It uses 3 gazetteers at the moment. 2 of them are open, one of them is closed. The closed one uses a gazetteer which was built out of the master map dataset, which we can't give away. But we can give away now the OS Open 150K gazetteer. We use geonames as well, which is completely open as well, and soon we'll be using something called Natural Earth. So you'll be able to search for features, hills, mountain ranges, river names, etc. So it adds to the richness of place. There's a little map there. Ignore the bit that says lost map, and it's on Google Earth. It's an example from another presentation. But what it does is, place isn't always represented by a dot on a map. It is if you use Google. That place means different things to different people. So we look at what the polygon of that place will be. So here we've got Lincoln. The blue polygon probably represents the urban extent of what somebody has defined as Lincoln. Actually, that comes from master map when you bring that out. And then we have minimum bounding rectangles. So you can cross-search references using place as a polygon rather than a point. So that means that you could find all instances of car crime within Lincoln, but not based on the X, Y that Google's given you, based on the polygon or the minimum bounding rectangle that we've given you. So it's a good way to dive into data and mine through it. Share Geo Open is another service which is trying to build on this. We've got all this open data, we're doing stuff to it. What you don't want to do is exactly what somebody else has done. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. So when you're finished with some data, you've added value to it and you want to share it, you can't. I don't think you can put data into data.gov.uk at the moment as a normal user. But you can put data into this repository so as other people can discover it and reuse it. And it has simple licenses, which just mean attribute the source, tell people where you got the data. So we've got some nice stuff in there for some strategic health boundaries. We're trying to add to that and trying to build a community. It's a bit slow at the moment, so we need more people to put data in. I've been looking at suicide data and river flows. They might not go hand in hand, but it's quite interesting. There's lots of interesting data in there for you to use. Other things are GoGeo, which is a one-stop sort of portal for finding out about GI. It has many different faces, and its face will probably change quite soon. But you can discover web resources, which is this blue section. So if you want to find out about open source software, there's lots of lists of information about plugins that you can use with open source software. It has its main role, I suppose, was to find data through searching metadata. And it's been doing that for about 5 or 6 years, and now Inspire's come along. It seems much more important, and there are more connected silos of data that we can tap into. So you can search and find the metadata which will lead you to the data. That will be running on Geo Network open source at the moment, but it's not. We have been working with the Scottish Government and Geo Network to provide their portal, which they, I think, then passed to the US, who are now using it as well. So it's kind of part of that big happy family which are using open source software, which is good. And we have a metadata editor, so you can create Inspire compliant metadata at the moment. The academic world's been able to comply with Inspire for longer than anybody else, but they don't necessarily want to at the moment, and they're not mandated in law to do that until 2013. So that should be through this. So we've got a few things in the offing. Mobile technology. Location seems to be, location-based services seem to be the buzzword in the mobile world. We've taken the OS Open Stack and we've put it through TouchMap Lite to give you a mobile app. That is the address for it. It is open and it's there to be abused. It's not necessarily going to stay on that address for much longer. We are looking at turning this into an actual service that people can just tap into. But it is quite neat, and it's remarkably fast at the moment. We're looking at augmented reality as well, just really playing around with what we can do and exploring that space. And the use of HTML5, which is really making everything much easier to do. And it breaks down these barriers to accessibility. One of our remits is our services must be accessible to many different browsers. And to everybody who has an old computer in an institute as well, without the latest software or browser on it. So HTML5 should make that a lot easier. And we have a couple of little blogs with interesting code snippets for mobiles. The second half of this is really, what are we using? And we do use a lot of open source. But to put it into context, we're not really a small organisation. We're quite large. We have 45,000 registered Digimap users, registered active users. And we have databases which hold 450 million spatial objects. Our Digimap service alone has these stats. So we've had close to 250,000 logins in 2010, made nearly 6 million screen maps. Our users have made print maps, nearly 150,000 print maps, and downloaded data almost 100,000 times. And we have quite tight SLAs which we must stick to. So we have to have a solution which works, is dependable, and doesn't fall over. And that's really the system architecture. So this is pretty similar to the slide from the first presentation. And it just shows what we're using from the bottom of the stack using the databases. We do have a proprietary one in there, which I think has the master map data in it. How long that will remain, we don't really know. We'll probably update that quite soon. We've got our two streams of web mapping services and feature services. But the important thing on this is that it's not all open. Our stack has two proprietary pieces of software in it. We've got Snowflake, which does a really good job of converting data from data formats, so GML data, master map data. So we use that, and we also use CAD Core. We use CAD Core for rendering maps. So when you work up through the stack, there's the usual suspects of what we're using to our service delivery, and we branch things out with customized maps and standard maps through tile cache. So the easy maps come through quicker, customized maps where we can turn layers off, a little bit slower to render. So the service delivery box at the top is perhaps where the user sees the map on a screen, and it's pretty much open source for the user at that point. But if they want to print, we also have CAD Core coming in to help us there. And the reason that we picked them rather than the open source was that we felt that there was a hole, and that the open source solution wasn't up to standard for the service that we wanted to provide to our users. But that didn't mean that we had to get rid of the rest of our open source technology and go down a CAD Core only route. We worked with them to build a solution which used the components that we wanted to use. And this is